What do you say to someone who thinks that marriage is just a piece of paper? Have you heard that phrase before, that reaction to marriage? Why would I get married? Why would we make this official? Why would we go through all the hassle when it's just a piece of paper? We love each other. We're committed to each other. God knows the heart that we have for each other. Why would we do it? I'm not sure if you've heard that. Maybe you've said that, or maybe you still even believe that. So how does the Bible tell us to respond to that? Well, before I open my Bible to Ephesians chapter 5, I just want to empathize with that sentiment. I think where it comes from is because we've seen so many marriages that kind of were just a piece of paper. Marriage was supposed to be this lifelong covenant. What God has joined together, let no one separate. But when you grow up in a home where mom and dad's marriage falls apart, or when you yourself are in a marriage and you thought it was a commitment, but then he wasn't so committed, and she walked out the door when things got difficult. It's hard not to see marriage as this lifelong covenant, but instead just a piece of paper, just some government contract. So I can understand why people would be skeptical, doubtful, even a bit cautious or bitter about the idea of marriage. But just because there's so much brokenness in this world doesn't mean that God has given up on one of his very first and best inventions. If we want to teach someone about the importance of marriage, maybe the best thing that we can do is to remind them that at its very essence, marriage is not just about him and her, about husband and wife. It's meant to be a reflection of something so much more, about Jesus and his church. Ephesians 5 is one of the most famous sections on marriage in the Bible. After instructing wives to do this and husbands to do that, the Apostle Paul says this in verse 31. He quotes Genesis 2, the origination of marriage. He says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." Marriage, right? But then the very next verse, verse 32, he says, "This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church." What? Paul, I thought you were talking about husbands and wives, about two people becoming one in marriage, but now you're talking about Christ and the church, and Paul's answer is, I'm doing both. Because when I think about the love and commitment that a husband has to his wife, how he gives himself up, how he leads with sacrificial love, I'm thinking about Jesus. I'm thinking about how Christ gave himself up for us to make us holy so that we would be God's bride, holy and blameless and beautiful and radiant and like making him gasp and tear up in his great love and affection for us. And when I think of a wife, I'm thinking about how the church loves Jesus, is committed to Jesus, yields to Jesus, trusts in Jesus. When I think about marriage, I'm thinking about Jesus and his people. This is not a piece of paper. It's meant to be a reflection of the most important relationship in the universe. So why did Kim and why did me and my wife make this official? Well, the answer is because we wanted to express the official covenant that God has with his people. Wanted to be a reflection that we're not just temporarily in this and we're going to go our separate ways if it gets hard. We are committed like Jesus is committed to us. If you've been through some hard situations, if you've seen happy couples who aren't married, you might start to question the whole institution. So how do you come to agree with God? I think the best thing to do is to grab your Bible, open to Ephesians 5, and remember that marriage is about so much more than marriage. It's not just about him and her, it's about Jesus and us.
Hey, thanks for listening to Taboo Questions with me, Pastor Mike Novotny. You can find even more questions on timeofgrace.org/taboo questions and in my book entitled Taboo, Topics Christians Should Be Talking About But Don't. Just look for the link in the episode notes.